Subhadeep, let me move to you. You of course looked at such a variety of, of course, you have such a variety of AgTech businesses in your portfolio. Tell us how COVID impacted. Tell us how these businesses recovered, these sectors. Tell us how tech adoption, digital, etc., will benefit or from in the long and short and near term. From COVID. Tell us, let's talk about all these impacts that COVID has created.
I think like any other uncertainty, it's brought on both positives and benefits, and negatives. Let's talk about the positives here, which we've seen, I think, across portfolio. Whether and that's basically just brute force adoption of tech. The way stakeholders, whether they were farmers, whether they were people in trade, or whether they were employees of our startups as well, and then we're seeing this across 25, 26 of the investments we've made. Every single one of them just reported that digitization and adoption of tech has gone through the roof. I'm sure Shashank can also testify to the same, but all trainings, right, all meetings moved online. Everybody managed to make that pivot in like 3 months, in 2 months. So I think now it's not even a discussion anymore. In even the customary initial 5-minute talk of COVID doesn't happen anymore because people are just tuned that way. So that's I think been interesting. It's also led to a lot of improvement in certain cases for companies because they are seeing that their workforce or especially kind of teams are much more engaged, and they don't have to travel 4 hours a day, and things like that is definitely helping. It's kind of, it reminds me of like demonetization days in some way, where people quickly adopted to PhonePe, Paytm, and whatever was there at that point. So I think that similar thing we saw. The initial trouble, of course, was due to largely logistics. I think the first month of lockdown was pretty tentative for some companies more than the others, depending on which state your operations were. I think those local lockdowns affected a lot of folks in terms of their ability to operate. So if you're a manufacturing company, your raw material supplies get hit. If you're a tech company or a hardware company, your supply chain got hit for those few months. But I think all of that is gone. So in a nutshell, I think we're seeing digital adoption move at 3-4x the speed of what we had earlier thought, in terms of companies reaching those numbers or their targets. Whatever we thought would happen maybe in 12 months happened in 3 or 4. So that's actually the kind of tailwinds which kind of COVID has got. The only other downside I'd point out too is for companies which are new, and we get to see a lot of them because we're seed stage investors. We also tend to come in pretty early in some companies. For them, I think building out the initial team culture and ethos, right? When you're hiring people, when you're a team of 4 or 5 people, and then moving from that to maybe 50, I think that initial team training and kind of culture building is a bit difficult to do remotely. That has been the only, I think, downside which we have seen so far as startups are concerned. But for the sector, I think food and agri is not stopping. I think it is probably one of the very few spaces apart from healthcare which has actually done really well despite COVID, right? People are kind of ordering in. They're more conscious about what they're eating, trying to look out for better options for their health, and that, I think, that demand related particularity that will pass through to the grower at some point, right, as it goes through various channels, and that will basically trigger the need for more and more tech solutions to be adopted. So that's kind of a nutshell of what we've seen in the last 9 months.